All right, ladies and gents, welcome back to another episode of the SoapyRao show. Now, as you know, I do things differently. I don't really do a formal introduction. I've got Shweta Subram on the call with me, so I'm going to do a little bit of an introduction for those of you who haven't had the good fortune of listening to her great music. Shweta, I'm just going to say a few things. If it's wrong, please do correct me. If it's right, then just say, hey, you got it right.
Okay, sure,
All
sure.
right. So Shweta is an artist. She's a musician. She's got a lovely voice, as you'll find out very, very soon. She sings in multiple languages, and very recently, her voice was a part. She lent her voice to a song that went viral. I'll let her tell you more about it. And of course, without any further delay, I'm going to join Shweta to join me on the call. Shweta, welcome to the SoapyRao show. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you, Sandeep, for having me. Pleasure is all mine. I am really excited to be a part of your podcast, and I can't wait for our conversation.
Yeah, it's so strange. I'll tell you how it's strange.
Okay.
Because I met you 12 years back, and 9 years back, maybe less, maybe more. Who knows? Time doesn't really matter in today's context. And I met you at the QK studio in Bombay, and I was like, yeah, this. And someone told me, I don't think we've personally sort of interacted for too long, but someone told me this is Shweta, she sings, and I think it was Sagar Gokhale who's a part of QK, and I said, oh, she's got a great voice. I think you were doing something in the studio next door. And 2 weeks back, you dropped a message. I think you did a WhatsApp or a messenger blast about your song, which is Jalebi Baby. And I said, I want to talk to her on, at that point, I didn't know which podcast because I just released the SoapyRao show. So this is the beauty of, I don't want to say the beauty of the pandemic, but the beauty of remote recording is you don't really need to have like an 8-camera setup and make it all professional, but we can do this remotely. And you are sitting in Dubai, I'm sitting in Bangalore, and we're connecting on this. So I really appreciate the fact that you've taken the time to join me on this episode. And how are you in Dubai right now? How are things, and how as an artist are you dealing with these times?
Well, firstly, thank you for having me. And wow, time really flies by, doesn't it? Because that meeting, I have a vivid memory of that when we met at the QK office. But it's things are great. I moved to Dubai just before the pandemic. The timing was, I don't know if I should say crazy.
Yeah.
The idea of moving to Dubai was because, so I'm originally Canadian.
Yes.
Canada is home for me. But I've lived in a lot of different cities around the world. So basically the shift that happened to Dubai was from California. So I was in California, and sunny California, and then I moved to sunny Dubai.
Well, it looks like California is a bit warmer than Dubai right now.
Yeah. And they always have wildfires going on there, so it's always a little scary.
Yeah.
The air gets polluted and stuff like that. But anyways, I moved here just before the pandemic. The idea was to be close to Mumbai because, my field, like my profession, music, a lot of stuff happens in Mumbai.
Yeah.
And, to date, I've not had the courage to make that shift to Bombay because I guess I've never lived in India, so I'm not sure how living in India would be for me. So I'm taking baby steps and I'm moving closer to India. So I think Dubai was, the default choice for me.
Is it because kind of like a transition from the sort of creature comforts that, because of course, India is changing, and, I think as an artist in Bollywood and who lends her voice to other regional languages, there is of course the Indian market, which is massively popular around the world now. The global presence and reach is quite crazy when you look at how a lot of non-Indians are turning to Indian music in its various forms. But you said you're from Canada, and Canada, of course, has a big Indian population.
Yeah.
But it's quite, I think I've lived in the US. I lived in the Northwest, which is Oregon and Seattle.
Oh, wow.
And
yes, Seattle, yeah.
it's beautiful. But for me, going there was always this sort of, the Indian going to the West is sort of this done thing where people are like, oh, cool. But now you have this wave of people who were born in Canada, Indians born in Canada, or Indian people of Indian origin born in Canada, let's say North America. I don't know if too many Indians are born in Mexico, but if that is the case, great. But there's a shift, and I across I'd say fields, right? I think one is, of course, the move for actors, musicians, because of the entire the attraction of Bollywood and the various other industries in our country, but also with people doing in the startup space, people doing a lot of social entrepreneurship. So how is it for someone like you who's born in a, I wouldn't say culture, but in a geography, in an environment, in an ecosystem like, say, Canada, and if was it Toronto where you grew up?
No. So actually, I was born in Dubai. believe it or
Oh,
not.
you were born in Dubai.
Yeah,
Okay, so this is kind of
this is
okay.
kind of home for me. That's actually what got me back here. I was never
Right.
thrilled about leaving Dubai because this is where all my memories are as a child. I was born
Uh-huh.
here, raised here. So for
And what was
me,
Canada? Canada was your sort of formative years. Was it education
yeah,
or?
I would say my primitive years. I would say like right after I was almost completing high school, my
Uh-huh.
parents decided to shift to Canada because at that time in Dubai there weren't too many universities. There weren't too many options for higher education.
Right.
Dubai just had its first American university at that time, and we weren't even sure if it was really accredited or not. So my parents were like, you know what, let's move to a country that we can call home, like we can call
Yeah.
home, because in Dubai, number one, you could never get citizenship, unless you're a local
Right.
national. So you're always a foreigner here. So, my parents were like, oh, like what are our options? And some part of my family moved to Australia. So that was one option. And then there was Canada, there was US. And at that time, Canada just worked out for my parents.
Yeah.
And we moved there. And I remember it was such a culture shock for me because obviously, here in Dubai, I was going to the Indian high school of Dubai. We had like a system set in place, like I'd wear uniforms to school every day, and all that was completely different. Like I went to a public school in Canada where you could wear anything you want. It's all about your comfort. Like there was no uniform system in place, and just the way classes were. Like you wouldn't, like in Dubai. I remember in school, like I'd sit in this one class. I walk into school at 7 o'clock in the morning, and all of us students would be in this one class, and then we'd have, every hour we'd have different teachers coming in teaching us different subjects.
Yeah,
But
that's how it works. Yeah, in India as well. You kind of are stuck, or rather, you're with your classmates throughout the day,
throughout the
and the
day,
teachers visit you. Yeah.
and they become your friends for life. So
Yeah.
I spent like a good chunk of, like, I'd say 13 to 14 years with the same friends in Dubai in school, and then I go to Canada where you don't have to wear uniforms to school and you can wear whatever you want. So it became more of like a fashion parade.
It sort of it resembles those scenes from Wonder Years, right?
Wonder
You're
Years,
like-
yeah. It's like I've been watching that show, and I was like, man, I wish I was, I went to school in America.
Where's
like,
Kevin? Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, it was like, wow, this is actually real, man. So I
That's
go
a strange
there
thing,
and
Shweta.
then,
Like the fact that now people will get the
Yeah.
I think the strange thing is this: the kind of listeners I have, they get the reference of Wonder Years. They're not the people going, "What's Wonder Years? You
I
mean
know.
Glee?"
I know, I can connect to Wonder Years, and
Which is awesome.
I can
So we
somewhat
yeah.
connect to Glee, but I can connect to Wonder Years more.
Oh, Wonder Years was amazing because, I think that's the perception. So, I mean, the Dubai situation is so different for people who've never lived in Dubai, right? Because I
Yeah.
have some friends who live there as well. And there's this perception that Dubai is, I mean, of course, it's true to a certain extent as a person, as an expat who's working. But when you grow up there, I think there is a certain undercurrent which really you don't get as a visitor. And then going from there to Canada, which of course, I think is way more liberal in other aspects. I wouldn't say just the flashy money and etc. But I'd say, and as you're pointing out with the school system, it's just a very different thing, which is not about progress or any kind of thing like that, but that's their culture and their schooling system, which is a lot more, you kind of figure out your own way, but it's not that you're force fit into this classroom structure where you either you get along with your friends or you don't. You kind of, you have the choice in the school systems
Yeah,
in
you
America,
mingle
right?
with so many people because and you change classes throughout the day. Like you're actually
Yeah.
walking from one class to another class, and you have a whole set of new faces there. Some
Yeah.
some familiar faces, and like a whole set of new faces. And
Which is a bit terrifying in itself, right? Because I experienced that in the university kind of system where you going one for, if you're doing a liberal arts program, you're going for a physics class, then you're going for your major, then you're going for your minor,
Exactly.
and then you're like, there's no sort of that sense of getting to class in the morning and you're sitting next to Prashant the whole day, and
yeah,
Prashant ends up being your
that's not there. That's not there, of course. And
Yeah.
the other thing was, what shocked me was when I went to school there, I felt like I went back like 3 or 4 years because the kind of stuff they were teaching, they were teaching kids in grade 12. Like I remember learning that in grade 9.
Oh, so you're saying you'd learned more in Dubai?
Yeah, I learned a lot more in Dubai because I went to an Indian school. So it was Central
Yeah.
Board of Secondary Education, CBSE, right?
Right,
and,
right.
And you know how CBSE systems can be. There's a lot of pressure.
I mean, in
on
the first
school
grade, you're already ready for IIT entrance exams.
Seriously, man. Seriously.
No, but I want to ask you that
yeah.
it's so strange that we're so prepared in some ways, right? Like when,
Yeah.
Indians are known to sort of max the SATs, the GREs, etc. Because of our curriculum, we're sort of really good at competitive testing. At at least most Indians are
Most
known for
Indians
that.
are, yeah.
But were you ready in other ways, like emotionally? Were you mature enough to sort of handle this, or did you feel like, I'm great at academics, I can, ace the maths or the physics or whatever exams you were giving? But did you feel a little intimidated by other aspects of life there?
Yeah, I was for
Okay.
sure. Like I was, it was a little emotionally draining for me just because, firstly, I was not prepared for the shift. I didn't want to move because Dubai
You didn't
was,
want to move. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
Dubai. I'm so attached to Dubai, and even now I'm so thrilled to be back here. So for
Yeah.
me, I didn't really want to move. So it was a forced move.
Yeah.
And secondly, like I told you, the shock. The culture shock itself, and just going to a school where the system is entirely different. So there was a lot to handle, a lot to take in. Because also keep in mind, I went at a time when like I was in my last year of high school. So
So that's when you're kind of like thrown into the deep end, because you want your comfort, your security
Exactly.
blanket, your friends around you. Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't have any friends there. Everyone knew everybody, and like they had their groups and they had their
Yeah, the cliques are already formed at that point,
formed
right?
at that point. Yeah, it's not like I'm in primary school. Like here I am in the tail end of like graduating from high school, and I'm trying to make new friendships, trying to
And
adjust to a new
which
country.
decade was this? This is in the 90s or 2000s?
Yeah, this was actually just early 2000s.
So,
Yeah.
okay, so that's probably a little better of a time because, I think, there is a little more exposure of Canadians to Indians. Or, I mean, I'm saying the Indians coming from other parts. I mean, the otherwise the sense of like, Indians have this stereotype that we come with. I think
Yeah.
that was a little broken by then, right?
Yeah, it was, and plus there were a lot of South Asians in my school.
Okay,
I did
that
see
helps.
like quite a diverse group. Like there were students from Bangladesh, from Pakistan,
Yeah.
from India, from Nepal.
And Russell Peters had just made his appearance, so people knew what Indians are.
Yeah, no, I think at that point actually Russell Peters was still not actually
Just kicking off. I think
Just,
early
yeah.
2000s when people are like, oh, there's an
Yeah.
Indian who can be funny and
Funny,
he's
yeah.
doing it in English, right?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
but like, what I like about Canada as a country, it's so diverse, it's so multicultural, and there was a lot of
Yeah.
respect for different cultures, and there was a lot of like interest for, even I remember my teachers, who didn't know much about India or never visited India. They were always curious, they'd ask me about questions about our country, about our culture, about our cuisine, about our outfits, about our fashion. They were
So
so
it wasn't the
fascinated.
arrogant assumption that you have cows on the streets.
No,
right?
no.
Right. That helps.
Fortunately, you know what? I've actually had that experience in the US.
I was just going to ask because
Yeah.
the US tends to have this, and I don't want to generalize, of course, because there are a lot of lovely people who want to know and want to
Yeah,
travel and
yeah,
understand other
yeah.
countries and worlds and situations, whatever. But there is this sort of Canadian sort of benefit of doubt which you give Canadians where they are a little bit more empathetic about where you're coming
They are,
from.
they are.
They want to know because they're kind of people. I don't know if they're kind of or unkind. I don't know what the word is, but they just seem to be a little bit more accepting for all that you are, not just the stereotypes that suit them,
Yeah, no, of course, and you're completely right. Like Canadians are definitely, I think they're more accepting, and they're just, they just like to learn about other cultures, and they're always curious, and they always, if they don't, if they're not aware about something, they just, ask you, and they're apologetic about it when they ask you. But at least it's nice to know that they're curious and they want to know more about our culture. They don't just make the typical stereotypic assumptions. like in the US.
Shweta, the weird thing is that even Indians who go to America
Yeah.
versus Indians who go to Canada, I think it's not about, I'm not, I have friends across the board, Indian, American Indians, I have, white Americans, whatever you want to call the word. But I just feel what tends to happen is that you kind of get into this own space when you go, because America is so vast, and I'm sure Canada also has regions which are really, really remote. But like say you go to California, which is the most popular sort of haunt for Indians, right?
Of
The Bay
course,
Area.
Silicon
They're just
Valley.
there, yeah. And you go there and you kind of can spend years in the Bay Area without meeting non-Indians.
I agree with you completely.
And it's so
that was my
claustrophobic.
experience. That was my experience. I remember living in a building where my neighbors, like everyone was in Facebook, Google, Amazon, or Microsoft, and they all were Indians.
Yeah. No, it's crazy because especially if you go to Sunnyvale or you go to Sacramento, even if you go to like say Bellevue or Redmond, that's the sort of the Microsofts and the Amazons are, it's literally moving to say, Bangalore with nicer streets, or not even because Bangalore is more diverse than Bellevue,
Completely. I completely agree with you. Like, it's hard to find an American there. It's hard to find a white American there. Like, I remember, like, I was in Sunnyvale actually, and
Right.
like my evenings out would be like, oh, let's go and have some dosa. Just because your accessibility to like a South Indian restaurant, like it's
much more than say a PF Chang's, right?
Yeah, much. I agree with you completely. And it's just that feeling of like you're I don't know what, like sometimes you're like, man, you're with your own people, and you're just very comfortable
Which is
in that
great. I
spot.
have no issues with that. I think it's
Yeah,
great to have a sense
yeah.
of these are my people. But it's also like, I talk to my cousin about this sometimes, and I'm going to get into the music bit. I'm sorry that
No,
I'm
no, no, I
stuck
know
on this, but
we're so excited about this conversation. I know.
right. No, because the thing is, it's where when you have no sense of what other living amongst other people are. Like, I think a lot of times people who live in India are sort of broader minded than people who kind of have grown up without exposure. Even though it's so strange saying this, growing up in America, people don't have exposure. I, growing up in India, lived in Wales. My roommates were all sort of British. They were white. I had a Sri Lankan guy as a roommate. I had a Welsh guy as a roommate. When I was in America, my roommate, there was an Indian guy from Chennai, but there was a Sri Lankan friend again, and then there was the rest who were just guys from Iowa, guys from Texas. And what tends to happen is when you don't have that sort of mixed encounters or mixed experiences, you tend to be very sort of rigid in your way of looking at those people, because just as how they judge you with their stereotypes, you judge them with your stereotypes, and it doesn't really
Exactly.
help anyone.
I agree with you. I completely agree with you. I think we're very
Yeah.
fortunate. You're also, I see from your experiences that you were fortunate enough to have been exposed to a lot of people from different backgrounds and different cultures,
Which
and
makes life richer for it, right? Which makes
I
you
completely agree with you.
more sort of forgiving and makes you less sort of stuck in your ways. And
Judgmental, yeah, and judgmental as
yeah,
well. I think we're a lot more open-minded as well, and I completely give credit to my parents for that, because the fact that I lived in Dubai,
yeah,
where there are a lot of diverse communities,
which is pretty amazing. Dubai, I
yeah,
think, is a really good melting pot for like
it's
a lot of expats.
a lot of expats, yeah,
Yeah,
especially the area I live in. Like I live in Dubai Marina area. There's tons of expats here. Not a day goes by where I'm sitting in a meeting and there's people from diverse backgrounds.
which is amazing. Yeah,
Yeah, so it's a great. So I think I should say blessed. I'm grateful because
yeah.
Dubai did that to me, and then I went to Canada, which was just opened up their arms and they were welcoming people from
Yeah.
different cultures.
I mean, there's a joke,
Yeah.
right? If you're going to Canada, it's like, which part of Punjab
Punjab.
are you from?
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah. Oh man. I remember going to Toronto, and the first time I went to Brampton,
oh, right.
I honestly thought I was in Punjab. Like it was mini Punjab, man. Like you look anywhere. Like you look,
Yeah,
Sardars driving taxis. You see Gurdwara in front of you. People going for langar. I mean, it's just.
yeah,
It's hard to digest. I mean, it's like really I'm in Canada. Signs are in Punjabi. You go to the airport
wow.
too now. You see signs in English. If you go to Vancouver, I remember the first time I was blown away. I landed in Vancouver. I was going there for a show. There were signs in 3 languages. It was in English, in Mandarin, and Punjabi.
In Mandarin and Punjabi.
Yeah,
That's great. I
at the
mean, you
airport.
expect that in Singapore, like, which has similar kind of situations where you have signs in 4 different languages, but not like you would never have signs in 4 languages where Punjabi is one of them, say in California.
Seriously. Yeah, seriously. Not yet. Not yet.
Not yet, not yet. That's well put.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a strange thing. I want to talk about this because I love the fact that when you have this blend of various things, which is your exposure of the world, or rather to the world, when you have this sort of Indian family you're from, you've lived in Dubai, I'm sure visited India, your family was here at some point, you've gone to Canada. And I think that is something which is also what music does. Because my roommate, who was family's from Arlington, which was from Alabama, sorry. Then he lived
Yeah.
up north of Seattle, and then he moved to college with me, and we still are really, really close. And he had these guitars, right? He had this Gibson Les Paul, he had this Fender Strat, and he would play these songs. And I was like, hey, I know that song. And I would be like, can you play Summer of '69? He's like, why do you brown people love that
Like
song
Summer
so
of
much?
69.
And I'm like, it's a great fucking song.
It
And
is.
then I would talk about Layla with Eric Clapton, the electric guitar version. Or then we would talk about the Grateful Dead, and then Led Zeppelin, and then slowly the next, he's introducing me to Stevie Ray Vaughan, who I hadn't heard much of, or say, BB King, and that conversation just got us started. And now, just last month, we had a long call where he was sitting in the night having his whiskey, playing his acoustic, and I'm talking about how I started playing the guitar. So, how did your journey of music start? And I mean, it's come here a long way, but how has that exposure to music in the environments that you were in shaped the kind of perception you have of music now?
Yeah. So my journey has been very interesting. I mean, as a kid, I never wanted to be a singer. Okay. Like, honestly, I remember like music was sort of forced upon me.
Okay.
I was in Dubai, and my mom, so of course my background is South Indian. Both my
So it's
parents are South
Carnatic?
Indian. Yeah, Carnatic music. Yeah.
Okay.
So my mom was very keen that I learn music because, first of all, my nanima, my grandmother, was a brilliant singer. Yeah, she was offered playback singing, but of course she came from a generation where they didn't allow them to go into the movies. So she was denied, singing for films, which is unfortunate. But anyway, she was a brilliant singer. And then my dad's side of the family also had some brilliant national award-winning Carnatic musicians. So, being the only child, I think my parents were overly ambitious that I should sort of do everything. Okay, I should be an all-rounder.
You're their resume, basically.
Yeah.
That's the Indian story. Yeah,
Yeah,
of course.
and something they can show off to the rest of the world,
Yeah.
So they were like, man, she has to study, she should go learn music, Bharatnatyam, you name it. All right.
Right.
So I was a kid that had so much on my plate, and I used to wonder, like, how am I going to manage all this? What do my parents want me to excel at?
Which parent do I impress more? Dad who wants me to do 10 things, or mom who wants me to do 11 things? Yeah.
Seriously, it was such a, I remember thinking, like, wow, is this what life is all about? And then
and the pressure's more as a single child. Like, I have an elder sister, so she took a lot of the load there.
Yeah,
my parents, after they realized, my parents like, this guy can't see, and not too many hopes for him.
Yeah, at least you had your sister, who impressed your parents. With me, it was like,
she did a lot of the heavy lifting.
Yeah. So for me, I remember, and then all that happened. I did my schooling in Dubai, like I told you, moved to Canada, and then I was learning music. I did my, they say the Carnatic musicians have their what do you call that? The initiation process where the teachers put them on stage, their gurus put them on stage, and I sang my kirtanas and all of that. And then I moved to Canada, and there was this competition that was happening in North America. It was very similar to the Indian Idol or the American Idol, but it was by a group called the Sangam Kala Group. They're very well.
So this was specifically for South Asians?
This is specifically for South Asians happening in North America.
Okay.
But the competition was taking place in Toronto. So basically, interested participants from US and Canada could go and compete in Toronto. Okay. And it was basically a 4-month-long competition. And I remember my friends in school because shortly after I moved to Canada, like a lot of people knew I could sing because there were like different, what do you call that, programs in school. Like there'd be multicultural programs, or there'd be some fun talent programs where I would participate. So everybody knew I could sing. Yeah. So a lot of my friends were like, man, you have to go and compete in this. You got to do this. And I'm like, man, who's going to go to Toronto? Because I was living in Ottawa at that time. Right. It's like an hour by plane and about 4.5 hours by car, on road. So I said, who's going to do this? They're like, doesn't matter. Just go give it a shot. I went, I competed, I won the competition, and then...
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah, and I remember it was my rendition of Lambi Judai, this beautiful song by Reshma ji. So I actually sang that, won the competition, and the winning prize was a ticket to India.
Ticket to India?
Yeah, to basically compete with national, like award-winning contestants from all over India.
Oh, so the eventual sort of showcase was back here in
Delhi,
Bombay.
In Delhi, actually.
In Delhi, okay. So you were sort of competing. You kind of represented North America. You won there, came here and performed with winners from across other parts.
Other parts of India, exactly.
Right.
So I did that. I came in the top 10. And then right after that, I was offered a show on television by this channel called Zoom TV. Yeah. So they offered me a show because they were organizing a girl band. It was called Sunsil Gang of Girls.
Was this the time when we had that band called Viva? No, what is it called?
There was Viva, right? Viva,
the one with Anushka Sharma, right?
No, Anushka Manchanda.
Anushka Manchanda, right. This is after the... I forget
this is much later. Like
much later, okay.
Yeah, that was probably like 10 years before,
Right, that's when sort of MTV Channel V were really hot in India, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. I remember, I think it was Niti Mohan and Anushka and Jimmy Felix. A bunch of these guys were part of that band, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So this happened, and their criteria for Sunsil Gang of Girls was, because Sunsilk was a shampoo.
Yeah, so of course. I still, I'm not admitting it, but
are you still using it?
Hey, I've upgraded to Dove, man. Come on.
Okay. Good to know. So what happened was they said, our criteria is like girls that can sing well and girls have beautiful hair. So,
lovely. Okay.
So then I got pulled into that reality show. Now the thing was, my plan was just to go and visit India. My plan was just to like compete in this thing and then just come back home.
Right.
I had no intentions of staying in India. So then basically this show got me to stay there for a couple more months. And I did that show for Zoom. And then I was like, enough is enough. I'm not sure if I can if I can stay here, I'm going to go back, because I was also feeling homesick. Just imagine someone going for the first time all alone to India. And especially in Mumbai, I had no family at all.
Oh, right. So you traveled alone, and this was, of course, for a competition. So it was supposed to be a
Yeah.
quick
Yeah, it was a
in
quick
and out.
thing. Like
But
my parents
yeah.
thought, like, yeah, she's going to go for about 2 weeks and she'll be back.
Which is fine on your own, but that's a strange thing. As you mentioned, it must have been shocking. So which was more shocking for you? I mean, of course, you went to Canada with your folks, so you had a support system. But was that your first trip to India?
No, that wasn't my first trip to India. Luckily,
Okay, it wasn't.
when we lived in Dubai, because the proximity, the distance between Dubai and India is so close, and we do have family in different parts of India, so we used to visit India quite often, actually.
But
Sometimes,
Bombay, that was your first sort of stint on your own for a long time.
on my own, yes, for the first time.
Okay.
Mumbai, I've been before. I love
That
the
can
city,
be a
and,
little nerve-wracking. Bombay can.
It can be nerve-wracking, especially because when I don't know, the people there somehow have an eye for a foreigner. So as soon as I was in the airport, like I had these people hounding me. Like,
Right.
do you want any help? Do you want us to take you to the hotel? Do you want? And I'm like, gosh, can I just had like. I've just gone here. Can you give me a break? So I remember.
Can you believe that happened to me in New York in Port Authority, that bus stand? I got taken for that. Yeah, this guy is like, I'll help you to the bus. You're $20. I'm like, I didn't know there's a valet service here, dude.
Yeah. You get that in New York. You're right.
Yeah. So similar in Bombay, I think it's just reverse sort of experience. Yeah.
Yeah. And they just don't let you breathe. Like they're always like you can always spot
that for
them.
sure.
You can spot them behind you. Even if you're trying to run away from them, they somehow make it up to you.
Like the humidity in Bombay, it's people and humidity. They both are very oppressive if you don't know your way around. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So, anyways, that happened, and basically I came back to Canada, and I decided to write my own music. So I remember there were these lyrics that were lingering in my mind for the longest time. One was called Jile, which literally was like, live your life like the way you want to live it. Jalti hai jo duniya jalne do jane do.
So these are all Hindi songs, right?
Yeah, Hindi songs.
So you just to before you speak Hindi, you think in Hindi, so that's the primary language you sort of communicate in besides English.
Yeah, so I was exposed to Hindi at a very young age. Because I lived in Dubai, and when I went to school here, which was the Indian school, we were learned to read, write, and speak Hindi.
Okay, so that's because of the schooling thing. Okay, just to get that.
Plus, my parents were not the traditional South Indian parents. A lot of South Indian households, you won't hear parents speak Hindi.
That's why I asked you that, because it's a very interesting thing being South Indian across the board. Whether it's now, of course, things are changing, but whether it's Karnataka or Tamil Nadu or Andhra, you are not sort of expected to know Hindi unless, of course, later on, or you've traveled, because you can really get by speaking whether it's Tamil or Telugu or Kannada or Malayalam and English. You're really fine with those two languages. It's interesting that I suppose, as you mentioned, it's Dubai, so the school taught you that, and
school
so
taught
you
me
went
that.
back.
Plus, my parents were not the traditional South Indian parents.
Right.
My parents actually lived in Delhi and Bombay for a very long time.
Oh, then sort of makes even more sense. Yeah.
So the thing is, like I remember my parents met in Mumbai and then they got married and all of that. So, anyways, they were always like they spent a big chunk of their time outside south of India. So for them, they learn the language.
It's kind of like a boon to know Hindi now because of the markets opening up for Hindi speaking, Hindi sort of singers.
Totally.
It's amazing. So that's actually another thing you can thank them for, I suppose.
Yeah, the typical, the sad part was anytime someone knew that I was South Indian, they're like, oh wow, you can speak Hindi?
Yeah.
And
it's amazing, Shweta, because like you coming from Canada to Bombay and I coming from Bangalore to Bombay, you probably have way more opportunity in Bombay than I do, because the moment I open my mouth, I don't speak Hindi. I've gone around Bombay trying to get to my comedy shows, and the guys are like, sir, which part of London are you from? I'm like, yeah, it's called Bangalore, man, because my Hindi is awful. And I know people now who are sort of growing up, sort of in Bangalore, who are learning Hindi because they have a fighting chance in the comedy industry. So you really have, and I think, you got to sort of benefited from knowing Hindi, but you've done a lot with it. So let me sort of get back to where you were saying the songs you wrote and
So I wrote my song Gile, I wrote my song Ajuba. I just put it out on YouTube. At that time, YouTube was just starting up. Like it wasn't as crowded as it's now.
Yeah.
But it was like, okay, let's see what happens. I didn't think much of it. I just put it up on YouTube. Got some nice music videos made. And I remember that was like year 2010 when I did that. And 2011, I get a call from music director Salim Suleiman's team, where they're like, "Oh, we want you to be a part of IFA Awards." And I'm like, "Is this some kind of joke?" Like, because generally the way things work is you sing for movies, you sing for a fair number of movies, and then the songs become popular, and
The
then you
item
have
numbers, right?
yeah,
The
item
traditional route.
numbers,
Right.
and
Right.
or even whatever, even if you sing a romantic number, but the typical step by step process is you sing for movies, and if you're lucky, you sing for some popular songs, some popular movies, and then you stand a teeny bit chance to perform at the IFAs or the film fair.
Oh, so that was the route earlier. So you go through this, you have a certain
I mean,
number
that's
of
the route most
accolades.
singers I've seen
Right.
take. But for me, it was the opposite. I didn't sing for a single movie, and I was called to perform at IFA. So
The
for
power
me,
of YouTube, which is
YouTube.
evident now, but of
Yeah.
course, which is amazing. Like,
Yeah, which I was like, wow. And then I only had 2 days to prepare for that song because I remember Salim Suleiman had come down to Toronto, and then I met them at the studios, and they're like, yeah,
oh, it
this
was
is
being
this-
hosted in Toronto.
Toronto.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
so they're like,
perfect.
yeah, we have this is a song you got to sing. Are you going to be able to do it and stuff like that? And I'm like, wow, this is overwhelming. This is exciting, but it's nerve-wracking, obviously. But
Yeah.
it was such a surreal moment for me because I performed at the IFA Awards, and in front of me, I always say this, like I couldn't believe seeing the entire film fraternity, like sit in front of me and watch me perform. Like Karan Johar was there, Hema Malini was there, Shah Rukh Khan was there. So it was like a dream come true, man. So that's how it all began,
Yeah.
and that's when I started taking music a little bit more seriously because I'm like, man, now I need to step up my game.
Yeah, I want to ask you something. If it's not relevant at this point, we can take it later. But when you're singing, there's so many approaches to music, right? There's so many
Yeah.
people who are untrained musicians as well
Yeah.
who have a good voice. But when you do things like this, when you're singing for a music director, or you're singing for, say, a Rahman, or for the person you sang, how much of your own can you bring into it? Because let me give you an example. Like if you're a voiceover artist, you're directed to the T by
I know.
the sound, by the director or the sound engineer or whoever may be involved in that process. But when you're, say, a singer-songwriter, you have a lot more liberty, is what I believe, or that's my assumption. But say when you're when you're sort of being produced or directed musically, how much of Shweta can you bring? Say for that show in Toronto, were you given your own sort of range to explore and play with, or because? Or since then, as you've become more experienced as a musician, can you sort of put your foot down, saying, "No, I want to do this because I personally think this will add more of me and more to the song." Say with like from that day to when you did, say, this particular song with Tesher, right? That's his name. How much of creative liberty can you add on or bring into it?
So the thing is, it's a very good question actually. Like in terms of IFA, what happened was, see, we only had 2 days, right?
Right.
And the song was set in stone. Like the entire composition was already done. A lot of the liberties that you're talking about can be taken when the song is being composed, when the song is being written, when the song is being made. But from what I understand, the way, at least my understanding, is in Bollywood, at least the way things work, number one is the music directors only call the singers when the entire composition is ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, because so they call the singers, and of course the singers can contribute, vocally, and they can suggest some ideas vocally, but
But within a very strict range.
yeah, within that composition,
Yeah.
and also it depends on music directors. In fact, it's an interesting question you asked because just yesterday I was watching an interview, a live session, Insta live session with this guy who was interviewing Mahalakshmi Iyer, and she was asked this same question. And she said, it really, every music director has their own style of working. So, for example, she was mentioning A.R. Rahman because she has done a lot of work with A.R. Rahman. She was saying that, he gives you a lot of freedom. And, he's very open to ideas and suggestions. And, like even when he
Which
calls...
makes sense, right? Because
Yeah.
that's what an artist brings in, is that much more range for the director to work with, right?
To work with, yeah. So, like when she, like, for example, when she'd go into the studio and she'd be given a composition, she would, suggest some things. And supposedly, Mr. A.R. Rahman is very, very broad-minded and he's very open to suggestions. So I think every director has their own style of working. I think some directors are very comfortable with having you deliver things the way they perceive it. Sometimes some directors just want you to render it to the T. Like, the way they have composed it, they just want it to be exactly like that because they probably feel comfortable. If a singer can.
Yeah, I think that's a sense of security or insecurity, whatever you want to call, with their own thing, because they feel that if the artist comes and outshines them, then I think there's that little sense of like, oh crap, what have I signed up for? Yeah. But you sense this in movies as well. Good directors just let, okay, you do this, what I'm expecting you to do, but can you go beyond it? Wow, that's amazing. But do you believe this also is a part of the culture of music right now, where, I'm coming from a place, maybe a stranger to the music industry, but as a person who listens to music, and I'm not going to be like, oh, old music was great, man, remember like that. No, I'm not talking about that. But generally, you sort of get a sense for, you have these musicians who are more brands than actually musicians, where every season you have a sound, right? Whether it's a Kygo kind of sounding song, or whether it's this kind of song. And then these companies, whoever it may be, sort of force fit the musicians. So this season it's Katy Perry, this season it's Selena Gomez. So do you feel the music becomes templatized and then the artist is just sort of force fit to fit that template?
Yeah, that happens in the commercial setting a lot, I'm sure.
Okay.
But I guess,
So how do you balance that out? Like, how do you do both? I mean, of course, you have to survive in the industry as a musician, and you can't just say, I'm going to do it for the love of music, because in comedy, it's similar. It's newer in India, the comedy industry. But you have these people going, I'm not going to sell out. I'm just going to do comedy, which I believe in. And next thing you know, those guys are really not doing comedy anymore because there's
unfortunately, I mean, I know there are a lot of these artists who are purists, who believe that I'm going to stand my ground and I'm not going to sell myself. I'm not going to, sell my soul to the devil and all of that stuff.
Right.
It's a great thought process, but honestly speaking, you have to be realistic. I mean, in this day and age.
But can you be a purist nowadays with the internet, without the middleman?
I was just going to come to that, actually. And you know what? I don't know if this point of mine is going to make sense, but I'm just going to say, for example, with social media, with Instagram, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times, the reality is, I see so many talented musicians with fewer followers. And then I see this other influencer, who brands herself as a fashionista and a singer and a musician and a cook.
Oh, don't forget Yogini.
And Yogini, sure, whatever. Let's add that to the mix as well,
Yeah.
And they have like millions and millions of followers. And a lot of times, I'm like, but where's the music? Like I don't hear, like, and it sucks. It sucks, and with the way social media is now, you can even buy followers. You can buy followers, you can buy likes, you can buy comments.
You just brought that up, and it sort of triggered this in my head, like how important, like, because for instance, now you do deliver great songs to your fans, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's collaborations, whether it's your own compositions. Now, you obviously need to get work, and a lot of times the way these people get in touch with you or sort of find you is by, or the discoverability, if you want to call it, is by number of followers. And you can buy followers, or you can do everything.
Yeah.
You can say, and you, as you rightly pointed out, right? You can be a TikTok star. You can take selfie videos of, wearing, today saying I'm a fashion expert, I'm a health expert, I'm a nutrition expert, I'm a fitness expert, I'm a music expert.
Yeah.
And you need to know just a little bit of each of these tools to do all of it. And as a result, have a million people who can now shift to another person who's as replaceable as you are, because you're just doing everything, like the person who's doing jack of all trades, master of none kind of situation.
Yeah.
But they have a million followers, and the person's like, oh, this person has a million followers, they look legit. But say someone has 10,000 but dedicated followers, because you have taken them on the journey of you becoming a better artist.
Exactly.
So do you find the payoff? Do you find it? I mean, is that even a model that works on social media from your experience? Because I think you believe the latter, where you are a musician who's great at what you do, and you're genuinely giving good music to your fans, as opposed to just doing everything which is
I don't care about
good.
the numbers game. Honestly,
But you might not care, but does it help to be in that perspective? Sorry to just sort of challenge you on that point, but yeah, does it make sense? Because I don't even look at my Insta numbers, but I love podcasting. I love comedy. I love putting out what I think I want to put out and what I can put out. I'm not going to learn Hindi to do a Hindi comedy special. But can you survive in this business, especially music, which is a lot more musicians than stand-up comedians in this country? And of course, globally, there are a lot more musicians. Can you survive by not playing the numbers game and just doing everything that's thrown at you, like TikTok, Snapchat, all the things, the technology that's out there?
Yeah, see, in the long run, you probably cannot survive. The reality is, at some point, you probably will be like, oh man, like all the number game does matter, But like I say, yeah, but like, what? Again, it's a decision. I leave to every artist. It depends on what their path is, what their plan is in their musical journey. See, my plan is always to give good content to my followers. And I care about those 8,000-9,000 followers that I have on Instagram. Like you said, these people have followed me through my journey thick and thin.
Which is
like,
amazing,
yeah,
right?
you
In
can
today's day and
you
age.
can pose a question to any of my followers, like, okay, what was this first song Shweta came up with, or what is a song that she has released with South Indian singer Karthik. You ask them
Yeah.
a question, and I guarantee you will get an answer. You know why? Because they have followed my journey through thick and thin. They know
Correct,
every
because
bit
you're
of
not
my journey.
replaceable by another
Yeah,
person because
yeah,
you put in the work,
yeah, exactly,
you
right.
know?
And plus,
Yeah.
I mean, see, I'm not here to sit and judge, like, someone's doing the right thing or the wrong thing, or, like, what do I feel about the number game and stuff. I mean, see, to each its own, whatever
Yeah.
works for
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
And who knows? Like, I'm sitting here and saying this now. I mean, especially after the success of Jalebi Baby,
Yeah.
I've had so many like brands reach out to me, like, for partnerships, and can
Right.
you
Right.
promote this, and can you promote, like,
I
and
mean, and it's human nature to be
yeah,
tempted, right?
of
Like, yeah,
course,
I
of
wouldn't
course.
mind.
When you see money on the table, you are going to be
Yeah.
tempted.
I mean, if someone comes up to me and be like, Sandeep, you know what, man, we love what you do. Can you sell lingerie? I'm like, of course I'll sell lingerie.
I
I'll
was just
sell.
going to come to that. And I've gotten such offers. I'm not kidding. Like, after the success of
Wow.
Jalebi Baby, someone's like, "Oh wow, Jalebi Baby's sweet, and so is lingerie," or
My God, how they can really find any connection,
any
right?
connection. Like,
Yeah.
you've made jalebi sexy now. Like, how about like posing with lingerie and a jalebi? Like,
Good Lord.
like,
And the next thing and if you fall for that trap, the rabbit hole, next thing you're like, yeah, I'm going to sell jalebi and lingerie. And next thing going to be like, medicine for diabetes. Like, where does it stop, right?
it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. And then, the question is like, see, I'm very, like, for me, when I wake up in the morning, I've got to feel like, when I look into the mirror, when I look
Yeah.
at myself in the mirror, I want to feel like, what, I'm proud of the decisions I've taken in my life, in my musical journey, the steps I've taken. I need to feel good about it.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
it's in a world like today. And of course, I personally believe, I don't think I'm contradicting you, but I think it's in one way, I think you have to figure out what you want for yourself in this journey of music or art or
Yeah.
creativity or even this experience called life, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to get carried away in today's context where one side you're kind of told you can do whatever you want, pursue your passion, break away from convention, and the other side you're told, my God, there's the right algorithm, you got to be on every platform. And the other side you're told, man, but there's not enough for everyone, you have to pull down someone else to become better. So I feel really bad for this generation who's I wouldn't say you and I, because I think we had a sense of reality with real human contact.
Yeah,
But for kids
I agree.
nowadays who are constantly being bombarded by Snapchat, TikTok, be the best and be the biggest, and be, sell this brand, sell that brand. They have no, I mean, while the tools are great, while YouTube gave you that break and you had the opportunity to perform at IFA, I think today, where a little talent could go a long way, is also your worst enemy, because the next person has as much talent, and it's never enough, right? And you're
Yeah.
kind of facing this decision, going, what is enough? But I think half or more of most of this generation on the internet, man, they're just so tempted all the time. When it's just enough for them, they're like, no, but I don't think there's enough for you. How about another million followers, another million
No, you know
subs?
what? Like, it's sad that the generation today, like, for them, their sense of identity or validity is
Yeah.
are their numbers on social media.
Because they don't have a real base, right? And I
Yeah.
feel so bad that they don't really have a friend they can turn to, saying, dude, it's enough. How about a cup of coffee with me?
Exactly.
Or let's go out and get smashed because
And
you
talking about a cup
celebrate.
of coffee, I'm telling you something. I go to these meetings, and there are these millennials,
Yeah.
who I'm supposed to have a so-called meeting with, face-to-face meeting with.
Yeah.
But 90% of the time they're on their phones. And if their
Yeah.
if their phone's buzzing, they can't. You should see their hands, like their fingers, they're trembling. They
It's a
can't.
drug addiction.
Yeah, they
I've
can't. They
spoken to a
can't sit
psychiatrist
still.
friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
I
have
mean,
to
like
check their
sometimes
phone in the
I'm
middle of a
putting up a
meeting.
post, I'm
Yeah.
getting some traction, like 5 likes. I'm like, 5 likes? Are you fucking crazy? I'm going viral, right? and after a point, I'm like telling my wife, like, let's celebrate with a drink, and you and I sit, and we can just chill, have dinner or something.
Yeah.
But that's not the case, because the system doesn't reward you if you're not on it, right?
No,
if you're
completely.
if you're getting 100 subscribers an hour or 100 followers on Instagram because of something, they want you to spend another 100 hours to get 1,000 more.
And the
if
thing
you're the
is,
kind of
this is
person that,
happening. Forget Instagram. Now there's a new app called Clubhouse. Okay.
oh yeah, I mean, I was just going to come to that, because that's for you and me more vocal, which I think is
Yeah.
ideally in a world. A friend sent this, going, Sandeep, you'll really love this. You can talk shit and people will follow you for that. I'm like, really? It sounds like a dream. But no, if you're there for half an hour and leave, they don't reward you. You have to be there. And when I was there, it first came out for Apple, right, in Jan or Feb. And I was there for, I think, an hour, and I was going, this is pretty cool. and I joined a group which was, I think, something with a fellow comedian, Kunal. I think was Kunal Kamra was doing something, and literally the next thing I saw, you have to spend 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, and I'm like, dude, this is just another hook which they're trying to get you by, right?
Yeah, yeah. And you know what's crazy? Like, I got a message yesterday where they were saying to me that, we want to collaborate with you, and you have to, like, promote this particular channels.
Oh, you're saying a group on Clubhouse
Yeah,
wanted
group
you?
on Clubhouse
Okay,
have
okay.
reached out to me. And they said, you know what, it's a paid collaboration. So I said, great. So then I said, so how much are you paying me? And they said, well, that depends on the number of followers you have on Clubhouse. And I'm like,
Yeah.
really? What about all those accomplishments that I've had to date? Like my
What
entire
about the
resume.
talent you spent so many years honing, right? None of
Exactly,
that
right?
matters?
None of that matters. Like, so you're telling me there's a person on Clubhouse who just managed to, and I found out you can even buy followers on Clubhouse as well. Like,
Yeah.
tell me one place you cannot buy followers. Like, you can
It's
buy
crazy.
you can buy
It's
followers on
crazy.
Clubhouse, and you're telling me this person has not even spent half the time that I have spent honing their talent, but just because they have 10, 11, 12,000 followers more than me, they're going to get paid to collaborate with you. Like,
And this is the same thing, right? And I'm sorry that my sort of plane of reference is stand up, because that's what I've been
yeah,
sort
no,
of
of
working
course,
with.
of course.
Is like now, the whole motivation, the carrot is become so much more instant. Like earlier, the idea was to get good, right? Idea is to
Yeah.
get good. As a result, okay, you're good in Bangalore. Okay, let's get good in Bombay. Let's get okay, you're good in English comedy. So let's make that better. Let's reach the world. And let's do some festivals. And it's no money, but you can sustain yourself by just the
Yeah.
basic, right?
Yeah.
Do some live shows here. Okay, it's not about selling Madison Square Garden, but it's about doing the smaller clubs in New York, or it's going whatever it may be. The idea of speaking English is for me to reach the world, right? And the idea of the internet is to facilitate that process. Now the carrot has become, okay, you do comedy for 1 year, you get on Amazon Comics done, you're great, and next thing you know, these kids who got in and they won that, my God, they're selling 1,000-seater a year or 2 years into doing stand up. And the next thing, they have no material because they've exhausted their material. They don't know how to write better jokes, newer jokes. And I'm sure this is the same kind of pattern in music, right? You don't know how to write songs or to develop music or compose music. And you're thrown this thing where, oh my God, you're getting a lakh to be on Clubhouse, whatever the amount is. The motivation to get better as an artist is literally nipped in the bud. And as a result of that, what these guys do is they sort of they just go through artists and comedians as quickly. They're like, well, this guy or this girl is no longer relevant. Next one. And you're just having washed up people who really never had a chance to explore who they are.
I agree with you. I completely agree with you. Everything you said like sums it up beautifully. Like,
and it's terrifying
that's what it is.
because how dispensable are people, right? Because when you give that glimpse of fame and fortune to a human being, oh man, it really is like a drug, as you said, like what the phone does. Your handshake, I want more of it. And it's kind of like you have a washed up generation of people who've never really even sort of set out on the journey of life,
Yeah, I agree with you. And you're right. You used the key word dispensable. That's so true. We got to remember that. We got to remind ourselves that every single day.
And when you don't have friends or family or this sense of grounding to life, it's even scarier, right? Because you can run to whoever you call that person in your life, right? Maybe your parent or maybe your whoever, your partner. But when you don't have that fundamental human bond, who do you run to? Because social media, which you thought was your connection to life, has let you down.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And that's unfortunately, I think the generation now, they're going to learn it the hard way. The reality check is going to come the hard way, when they realize that they're out of material, out of content. The people that so-called followers that looked up to them or, DM them all the time are not going to come to their rescue when they're having a bad day.
And you hear this, I'm sure you've interacted in your fraternity of musicians, of people. And that's why, earlier you probably see or hear from a 70-year-old or 60-year-old Hollywood star going, man, I've gone into meditation or I've gone away from it because it's great. Now you hear from like a 16-year-old saying, I've had enough of social media.
Social media,
It's crack.
Yeah.
It's crack. It's amazingly crazy how...
They call it the detox. The detoxing from social media.
The detox, exactly. And you have these kids who are like 18 going, I need some space just for my mindfulness. I'm like, space, live a little bit of life, see a little adversity, man.
There's actually an app called Headspace. Which
that's sort of like the meditation, the calm thing, right?
The calm thing. And there are so many teenagers that are on it.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Like how, and that app, I downloaded the app as well because I needed some... I needed to do something.
It's a beautiful app. I think it's great. And I don't think it's wrong for anyone to be on a program of meditation or mindfulness but I'm just talking about this ability to deal with disappointment or resilience is lacking in a lot of people now. I don't blame them. This is not about criticizing them for what they've been dealt this really, really shitty card with technology kind of abusing their vulnerability.
I
But
agree with you.
But I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but I can just go on for hours, as you can tell. I'm just like kind
That's
of like
okay, man. We're having a fun conversation. It's cool.
no, but I want to talk about your music because I heard your songs and very, very catchy. I don't speak Hindi, I don't speak Punjabi, but the thing with Indian music, as you've probably witnessed firsthand, is the ability to make everyone get off their seats and have a good time. How is this collaboration for you? It's gotten massive, right?
Massive viral. Yeah.
And mainly what? It's mainly with Indians, or it's mainly with Canadian Indians, American Indians?
No,
What's
it's global. Honestly,
Wow.
I'm going to be very honest about it. Like
Of course, please
I
do. I want.
it's my time to blow my own trumpet.
Absolutely. I mean, you got to do it because it's literally, and when you mean viral, it's global. Like
No,
like
it is.
Gangnam Style. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Gangnam Style. Yes, I think after Gangnam Style, this is probably the next song that really had that impact, because what happened was basically Tesher reached out to me because I was told about Tesher by a friend.
And he's a fellow Canadian.
Canadian as well. Yeah.
I mean, you're not Canadian, but what I mean is he's from Canada, right?
Yeah. No, so we both are Canadians actually. Tesher's Canadian.
Oh, so
I'm
one sec,
Canadian.
you have become a Canadian
I
citizen.
am a Canadian citizen. Yes.
Right. Okay. So you're a fellow
Fellow
Canadian.
Canadian,
Okay.
yeah.
Cool.
So what happened was basically a friend of mine who's also Canadian, lives in Dubai, Indo-Canadian. She told me she works out and she listens to all sorts of weird music. So she came across Tesher's music and she said, "Listen, you got to check this kid out. Go on to SoundCloud and hear his music." So I said, "Okay, I've not heard about him before. I'll do that." So, whenever I like someone's music or I like someone's work, any piece of art or anything, I have a habit of sending a quick message, appreciating their talent and just saying that, keep it going and best wishes.
Vote of
and all
confidence.
that.
I think it really helps to hear that.
So I did that. I sent a message to Tesher, and funny enough, I get a message back from him saying that, I've gone through your music as well on YouTube. And interestingly enough, I'm working on a track called Jalebi Baby. And the kind of voice I'm looking for, the texture, the tonality I'm looking for is very close to your voice probably will suit it. So do you mind just sending, like a rough recording of you singing Jalebi Baby, and we'll take it from there. So, I was fortunate because all this was happening during lockdown, although Dubai was not really under like a major lockdown. Dubai is like up and running. Everyone's out and about partying, and everyone's maintaining their social distancing. They are
one person to an
masks.
island.
So, but they're all vaccinated. They're all socially responsible. They're wearing their masks. All of that. So. I was like, you know what, who's going to go to a studio and record? I'm just going to sit at home and record. I have a microphone. I have a laptop set up with Logic Pro. I'm just going to send my vocals. I sent it to him, and the next thing I know that the song is released in Diwali with my vocals on it. Like
I'm sure that was not a very pleasant surprise, but it's a pleasant surprise.
No, it is. It was like a bittersweet experience. I'll tell you why. Because number one, usually the way artists work is like, you discuss, you go back and forth, and then the artist who's using your voice will tell you, like, okay, here's
that's what I was going to say. You should probably be, I'm glad it went well, but it could easily have gone, hey, I don't like that, my voice being used without my consent kind of thing, right?
Yeah, because it was more, what happens, I've worked with so many artists, I've done so many cross collaborations, and, usually what happens is there's always that final track that both artists, like, there's that, like, okay, here's your voice, this is how it's being used. Anything you want to say, anything you want to add, anything you don't like about it. Okay, are you happy? Good, we're good to go. We're going to release it on this date. There's like a final word to all
it's just a formality, but it's an important formality.
It's an important formality. So it was kind of strange because I recorded my vocals, sent it to him, never heard back from him, and then Diwali,
and from home, right? That's the weird part. You've done it in your home studio.
My home studio, right? So my friend, the same friend who told me about Tesher, heard the track on Tesher's channel during Diwali. And she says...
And this is Diwali 2020, last year.
2020.
Right.
And she's like, hey, did you sing for Jalebi Baby? Because the voice sounds very familiar. And I'm like, yeah, I did. Yeah. And she's like, oh my God, it's released. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So then that came as a huge surprise. Right. And the other part was that he referred me... He referred me as the background vocalist of Jalebi Baby, which I can't put my head around because
I've heard the song. There's no background voice, right? It's just him and your voice in the hook, right?
So the funny thing is, initially when we spoke, when he sent me a contract and when we spoke, he said you're going to be recording background vocals. Okay. So I said, okay, background. And also his manager had mentioned to my management that there's going to be a bunch of singers singing the song.
Right.
So I said, okay, you know what? My voice is going to be one amongst 10 voices. I've never ever done background vocals before. I've always done lead vocals. So
Right.
initially I was a little apprehensive, like, should I even do this project? Should I not? Then I said, you know what? It's COVID. People are already going through so
Yeah.
much. Who cares?
Yeah, and I'm doing it and that's how sometimes when I approach these things, I'm like, it's not really conducive.
I'm doing it
but
for the love of music. Yeah.
It's from the luxury of sitting in my pajamas with a nice shirt on and
Yeah.
doing, it's
when I'm
nice.
at home, like, how does it hurt
Yeah.
to help, fellow
Keeps the
Canadians?
muscles flexed. You can keep like a workout. Yeah, you can
Yeah,
kind
so
of.
I said, okay, whatever. So, I assumed I'm one amongst 10 vocalists. I'm a background vocalist, whatever. When it comes out, my voice is in the forefront. I can hear my voice loud and clear and singing the hook, Jalebi Baby.
Yeah.
So I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't sign up for this. So that kind of came up as a surprise. But you know what? Then I said, oh, well, whatever. It's
So what do you do? You said management, and of course,
Yeah.
let's talk about that before.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think we can wind up soon. But I want to. It's a first of all, congratulations to you for that
Yeah.
that song going where it
Yeah.
has and doing what it has done for you, and to even Tesha. I mean, is that how it's pronounced? Tesha.
Tesha, yeah.
Tesha, yeah. I mean, congratulations if he's listening to this, of course. And but this management thing is such a big thing because this went well, right? And the hope of management is that it get you more work and to sort of screen the work that comes your way and to kind of represent and protect you from the big bad world out there in the industry. But for say someone, an aspiring artist who's probably going to go down the traditional route and find representation, or maybe even get big on YouTube and find something, how do they maybe in a 101 kind of approach, how do they navigate the management thing? Because maybe even someone like me wants to benefit from this because 11 years of doing stand-up, I haven't had a single. I mean, I've had a manager, but I kind of manage them. Let's put it that way. They didn't really do much for me. So how do you kind of navigate this business of music?
Yeah, it's funny because I think finding a good manager is very difficult. I always believe that, as an artist, I think it's important for you to just keep doing your work, focus on the quality of your work, focus on your content. And there will come a time when you're inundated with so many requests and, like your career will just, just explode and you will need someone to manage you.
Right.
But it's very important that the manager puts the interests of the artist first.
Right.
Because a lot of times.
So do you go with someone you trust or you go with the best one out there?
I think it's a tough question to answer, but I think it's important to go with someone you trust.
Okay.
Because I personally believe that I've had it the other way, where I've gone with someone who's the best out there. Mm-hmm. But then someone like that, also, first of all, they have a lot on their plate. Sometimes they're simultaneously managing 2-3 artists.
Everyone wants them, yeah.
Everyone wants them, and then what happens is, they just go for the cash grabs, right? They just look at what deal is going to give them a good chunk of commission.
Yeah. Who's the bestseller? Yeah.
Who's the bestseller, right? And and a lot of times, because the manager's involved, you're not even aware of the kind of requests that come your way. Sometimes you'd want to do something just for the love of music.
And that's kind of passed over because it's not lucrative enough.
It's not lucrative enough financially, right? So then that's not exciting enough for the manager because he's like, what am I making out of this? It's not that exciting. So it's very important to find a manager who knows the artists, inside out, and also who puts your interests in the forefront. And secondly, discusses every offer that comes your way.
I think that sounds really, really sort of fundamental to know what your options are before you select them, right?
Yeah, like even talk to the artist, even if it doesn't look very lucrative financially, as you said, at least, like show that email to the artist or show that message to the artist and say, hey, this isn't offering much, but is it something you'd like to do? Is this going to help?
Because you never know when like another Jalebi Baby opportunity, which, it seems very trivial as just giving your voice to a background thing, but it just turns out to be, a global phenomenon.
Yeah, I mean, right? I could have just sat there and said, who's going to record these 2 words? I mean, I'm going to be one amongst 10 vocals based on what Tesha had told me initially. I could have just said, brushed it on the side and said, who cares?
Yeah,
but the thing is, I just followed my heart. I said, okay, you know what? Like, let's just do it for the love of music. We're all on COVID. It's not going to hurt me much. I'm sitting on my dining table. Literally, I was in my dining area with my laptop and my microphone recording Jalebi Baby.
Right.
And I send it across and see where that's gone. It's massive.
Just like this episode, it's going to go.
I'm sure. And I look forward to that. And something. The interesting thing is what really excited me the most was when my voice was like sustained even for the Jason Derulo version, because initially,
Yeah, I heard
yeah,
that song was packaged with him. I mean, is
yeah,
that the right word, or reproduced with him?
yeah.
And it was your voice. Yeah.
Yeah, and what's funny? I wasn't informed about that either. Like, I didn't know my voice was. Like, I remember like Cheshire put an announcement out saying like, I can't wait to share the Jason Derulo version with you guys. And it's funny. I had a discussion with my family, and my family's like, yeah, he's probably completely changed the song and made an international version out of it. And the fact that he hasn't told you anything about it, your voice is probably not on it. And then Jason Derulo version releases, and my voice is loud and clear. So I guess, a lot of things changed with the song with the different versions. But
But
what
how do
remained
people know it's you,
consistent was,
Shweta? Like, is your name there?
so it is there, but the unfortunate part is it's in the description of YouTube. So only
Right.
if someone,
So
yeah,
people
clicks on the
really did
description.
make the effort to go find who the lady's voice is and then reach out to you. Because, I mean, with all due respect to other artists and to all artists out there, sometimes you hear a voice on a song and you're like, great voice, but not. I don't know how it works, but do people often go, "Who's that voice?" I mean, that means your voice really made an impact for people to
That's
be like,
what I'm
"I
trying
want."
to say. That's what I'm trying to say. Because you know what? You're right. And this was my argument the whole time. Because ideally, the fact that I'm singing the hook, Jalebi Baby,
Yeah.
the title of the song should have been Jalebi Baby Tesher featuring Shweta Subram. That should
Yeah,
have,
because you're giving those things the intonation or the voice that is making it stand out. Of course, it's a great song, and respect
Of
where
course,
it's due.
respect to
Of
his
course,
composition, respect to him, the producer. It's his song. He's done everything. There's
but
no
the
two
fact
ways
that
about
people remember your voice and
Yeah.
made the effort to go find out who you are
Yeah.
shows that that is as important as the rest of the
Yeah,
song.
and I've gotten so many compliments from people saying that it's these two words that really make the song very exciting. Like even
Yeah.
yesterday, I was talking to somebody who said, what, Shweta, I cannot remember a single lyric in the song, but
Yeah.
all I remember is Jalebi Baby.
It's the beat and that hook. I played it with my dad. My dad loves Shakira. If you know her, just please tell
Of
her that.
course.
He's like, oh, Shakira, anything. I love Shakira. And sometimes it's
So
funny,
cute.
and sometimes it's concerning. I'm like, Pa, Ma and you're together, right? Like, and he's like, Shakira's amazing. And I played this song, and he's like, it's nice, it's catchy, and we made it a point now at home to have these things where my wife loves music, my mom loves music. So my dad, it's well in the evenings. Otherwise, music should just be at a party. But now music's sort of part of our evenings.
That's
and I play
nice.
these songs, and he really liked it. So yeah, you have
That's
my
really
dad's
nice. Please,
thumbs up on that one.
Yeah, please convey my regards to him. That's awesome, and it's really nice to know he likes Shakira because I'm a big Shakira fan as well.
I think he needs to see a therapist on that one.
No. But you know what? Like all said and done, like going back to Jalebi Baby, I think I don't know why Cheshire chose to do what he did. Like
I mean, have you asked him about it? Because I think that would be the most obvious thing, right? Like
I did.
have you
I reached out to him, but I never got any answers.
Okay, I mean, I hope he's listening to this, and of course, great song, and I'm glad it's done what it has for him and for you.
Yeah.
And I think this is. I mean, I'm not at all in any way undermining what has happened till date with your career, but I think, I hope you have way more opportunities and results like this going forward, Shweta.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's wonderful.
And thank you for doing this. Thanks
This
for
is
agreeing
great.
to be
It was
on
a
my
great
podcast.
conversation. I think we had a fun time. We chatted about everything and anything, right?
And that's the plan with this. I don't want it to be just about one song that you put out. I want people who are listening to this to understand what Shweta has, what you, I don't want to speak about you in the third person, but what you've been through, the effort that goes in, the experiences that shapes you, and how you, I think, can't really be defined by one label, but it goes into all of life to make you who you are. So thanks for sharing that story and for everything that you've been through on this episode.
No problem. And the only request I have to everyone listening to this podcast is, show us your support. Follow us on social media. I know we were talking about not running,
but it does help.
It does help.
It does help.
If you truly enjoy the music, if you truly enjoy the kind of stuff I put out there.
And Shweta, what are your handles? Because I will put them down, but if you could just say it out loud, that also helps, because it keeps it purely audio then.
It's as simple as my name, Shweta Subram, ShwetaSubram, and that's my handle across all social media channels, whether it's Instagram, YouTube, or Facebook.
Fantastic. So Shweta Subram, ShwetaSubram. Guys, go and listen to her music. Give her a follow. Give her a thumbs up. Give her a like. Whatever the words these kids are using these days, give it all positivity. Shweta, thank you so much. Good luck. All the best. Take care of yourself. And congratulations on everything that has come your way.
Thank you again. Take care, Sandeep. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.